What if the pattern could be broken? What if the cycle of exile, rivalry, sacrifice, and shadow need not repeat forever? What if the story that has bound this land in grief could be retold, not with blood, but with compassion? For centuries, Israel and Palestine have lived as mirrors of each other's wounds. One people's return was another's dispossession. One people's survival was another's catastrophe. Each side carried its grief as sacred, yet denied the others. But what if grief could be shared, and remembrance could become the doorway to peace? History shows how difficult this has been. Peace efforts have risen like fragile towers, only to collapse under the weight of mistrust and violence. Agreements were signed, handshakes were made, but the deeper wounds remained unhealed. Each time violence erupted again, the fragile trust dissolved. The Oslo Accords promised two states side by side, but settlements grew and hopes shrank. The Camp David talks opened doors, but fear closed them. The Arab Peace Initiative offered recognition, but was met with hesitation. The cycle of effort and failure reinforced the belief that peace is impossible, that the pattern cannot be broken. And yet, beneath the failures of politics, there are whispers of another possibility. Grassroots reconciliation efforts have emerged, often quiet, often unseen by the world's cameras. Israeli and Palestinian families who lost loved ones have come together to mourn jointly, recognizing that their tears are the same salt. Teachers have created programs where children learn each other's stories, discovering that the narratives they inherited are not the whole truth. Activists have stood side by side in olive groves, protecting trees from destruction, planting seeds of both agriculture and hope. Musicians, artists, poets have woven the grief of both peoples into shared expressions, refusing to let silence separate them. These moments are fragile, often attacked by extremists on both sides, yet they are seeds of what could be, remembrance that does not divide, but unites. The archetype for this transformation is what I call twin remembrance. It is the vision that Jewish grief and Palestinian grief are not enemies, but siblings. That the Holocaust and the Nakba, though different in scale and form, both represent traumas that shape identity. That to honor one does not mean to erase the other, but to hold both with equal reverence. Twin remembrance is the act of standing together at two graves, acknowledging that both losses are real, both wounds are deep, both stories must be remembered. This is a radical act because memory has so often been weaponized. Each side has used its grief to demand legitimacy while denying the others. Jews said, "Never again," but sometimes forgot that others, too, must never again suffer dispossession. Palestinians said, "We will return," but sometimes forgot that Jews, too, had returned from millennia of exile. Each side has been tempted to believe that their suffering gives them exclusive claim to justice. Twin remembrance breaks this pattern. It says, both griefs are holy, both traumas are real, both stories belong in the sacred archive of humanity. Imagine a day of remembrance observed not separately, but together. In the morning, Holocaust survivors and their descendants light candles, telling their stories of ghettos, camps, and ashes. In the afternoon, Palestinian elders and their descendants unlock the old iron keys, telling their stories of villages destroyed, of exile in camps, of dreams deferred. And in the evening, both groups stand side by side in silence, listening not to their own voices but to the echo of each other's tears. Such a day would not erase the differences between them. It would not deny the uniqueness of each trauma, but it would bind them together as witnesses to each other's humanity. It would weave memory into a fabric strong enough to hold both truths. The archetype of twin remembrance has power because it transforms rivalry into recognition. Instead of competing for the title of greatest victim, both peoples can recognize that victimhood does not give superiority, but solidarity. Suffering is not a contest. It is a bond. Trauma is not a reason to erase the other. It is a reason to understand the other. In this reframing, Jews and Palestinians are no longer enemies, but companions in grief, and therefore companions in healing. The world, too, must join in this remembrance. For the shadows projected onto this land, Anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, colonial guilt can only be healed when the world acknowledges its part in the cycle. Twin remembrance is not only for those who live between the Jordan and the sea. It is for all humanity because this land has carried our projections, our shadows, our sins. If healing comes here, it will send ripples across the earth, teaching us how to hold grief without turning it into violence. The prophecy is not written in blood. It is written in the choices we make. The scriptures of Jews, Christians, and Muslims all contain visions of swords beaten into plowshares, of lions lying down with lambs, of justice flowing like a river. These visions are not inevitable outcomes, they are invitations. They show us what could be if we choose compassion over rivalry, remembrance over sacrifice, kinship over exclusion. The end of days does not have to mean the end of the world. It can mean the end of war. What if the pattern could be broken? It can. But not through denial of history, nor through domination, nor through violence sanctified as holy. It can be broken only through remembrance that holds both griefs together, through compassion that sees both stories as sacred, through courage that chooses life instead of death. The soil remembers the blood of daughters and sons. But the soil can also remember peace. It can remember trees planted, children laughing, prayers spoken side by side. The prophecy is not finished. It is still being written, and it can be rewritten, not in blood but in compassion.